There are rumors that have come up to the Hill of a secretive project within the Department of Defense.
I've been in a Twitter war.
All of the 7 mountains of society to be taken over.
Those people in the teachers' unions are Marxist, cultural Marxists, often gay.
We're trying to recruit you to tuck your penis.
If you believe in evolution, why don't you just kill people?
I'm like, well then let's go fight. I'll just kick his ass. How's that?
Welcome back to the Fever Swamp Review, a podcast from the Colorado Times-Recorder. I'm your host, Heidi Beadle. Maybe you've noticed that lately the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement Agency, or ICE, has been in the news quite a bit lately, which makes sense. We're into Trump's second term, and during Trump's first term, ICE played a central role in his policy goals, right? Deportations, immigration enforcement. And of course, during the first Trump administration, ICE kind of became a focal point for a lot of protesters and activists. Here in Colorado at the Aurora Geo Detention Facility, there was the Occupy ICE encampment where activists staged kind of a live-in on the sidewalk, and they had a big, they chained themselves in front of the entrance, and there were some arrests, and it was a whole thing. And various other kind of protests around ICE activity. And now into the second Trump administration, we're seeing a similar kind of increase, right? And here in Colorado, that's been sort of exacerbated by a recent report from the ACLU showing that ICE is considering 6 locations, including here in Colorado Springs, for a new ICE detention facility, right? And part of this kind of controversy over ICE detention facilities led to a number of protests and kind of actions, one of which on July 20th involved Colorado Congressman Jason Crow, who showed up at the Aurora facility to inspect it, and he was denied entrance, and he posted this video on Twitter and social media.
I'm Congressman Jason Crow from Colorado's 6th District, and I'm outside of the Aurora ICE Processing Facility. This is an ICE detention center that's run by the Geo Corporation, and I just attempted to conduct an oversight visit of the facility pursuant to federal law. So Public Law 118-47, Section 527 says that members of Congress must be provided immediate access to facilities like the one behind me here to conduct oversight. Again, I was just in there and was just denied access in violation of federal law to this facility. So listen, one of my biggest obligations as a member of Congress is to conduct oversight, to show up and to make sure the taxpayer dollars are being used in accordance with my constituents' values, but also in accordance with law, and that's certainly not what is happening here today.
Now, former ICE agent and congressional candidate John Fabricatori took to social media to point out that maybe, what Crow is doing is kind of a performance stunt or publicity thing, noting that Crow has in fact visited the ICE facility numerous times before, but that on Sundays they're understaffed, and Crow alleging that Crow specifically chose Sunday so that he could get denial and make the video and whatever. I don't think politicians would do anything like that. But nonetheless, right, the controversy over ICE and over potential new facilities has, spilled over into kind of county level politics, right? Here in Colorado Springs the other day, we had a number of activists show up to the El Paso County Board of County Commissioners meetings to speak about this potential new ICE facility and kind of voice opposition. Here is El Paso County Commissioner Carrie Geithner addressing some of the concerns before public comment begins.
Okay, before we move on to item 3, I just want to, I've become aware someone in the audience was kind enough to explain to me or ask a question about when would we be discussing ICE detention centers. That is not on our agenda for today. That is not something that the commissioners deal with. So I just want to make sure that that is clarified. CRS 24-76 Point 7102 significantly limits any Colorado local government from participating in any kind of ICE detention. And so just I want to make sure that it is aware that this board is not able to take any action on any of those items. Though you are, and again, there is no item on our agenda, though you are welcome to speak during our public comment period. Because we do have quite a number of people here on a variety of topics. We are going to limit public comment to 1 full hour today because we do have considerable business after that. That this board needs to participate in. So we will do 2 minutes for a total of 1 hour, and we will do that based on the sign up. So if you have not signed up for public comment, I would ask you to do so. Also know that we have many other ways to contact this board. And so you can do that through email, voicemail, many ways to reach out and share what it is that you would like to share with this board. With that, we'll move to item 3.
Which is a very, reasonable and measured response. One of the things that I did before I became a journalist, I was a high school English teacher, and I taught rhetoric, and, covering politics politics is just a great place for anyone who is a student of rhetoric and who likes, all of those things. One of the things that I always told my classes when you're preparing a piece of writing or a speech or whatever is that you want to consider your audience. And Carrie Geithner, she gets this, because she's here in front of this, county commissioner meeting full of angry liberals, and she's very reasonable. She's like, look, we're the county commission. We don't have anything to do with ICE or the federal government, and we're not making these decisions, and it's not on the agenda. Very reasonable, right? And I don't want to disillusion anyone, right? But one of the things you learn covering politics is that politicians will often say very different things to very different crowds of people, right? Again, they're considering their audience. So we're going to take a listen real quick to what Geithner and Commissioner Bill Wysong had to say last week when they were on the Richard Randall radio program. Let's take a listen.
And let you explain where the county is on these 2 proposed ICE detention facilities.
Well, good morning, Richard. Thank you, as always, for having me on. And, we obviously were not involved in coordinating this, but finding out about it, we're very supportive of this, as we have been very supportive of President Trump's agenda to close the border and make sure that we are getting these folks out of our communities and keeping them safe. And so this is a step towards having, having the ability, as you said, to be right here and be close. And I think that's great, especially in a state like Colorado, where our governor and our legislature has made these sanctuary laws in the state that we obviously don't agree with, and we have pushed back pretty hard against those. For ICE to come in and say, look, we're here for the residents of Colorado, regardless of the fact that the state is making this more difficult than it needs to be. To me, that is President Trump keeping his promise to all of his supporters that are here, even though our state is not paying attention to the needs of our community. So I think we are all very supportive of that and hope that being in Colorado Springs, where we have supportive law enforcement, and obviously the sheriff's office is very supportive, that will be a help. And I think in regards to the One Big Beautiful Bill, this is one of those things that was going to be funded, right? We knew we were going to get more money for these efforts, and I am glad to see that they are acting very quickly to put that to work.
Well, I am as well. I mentioned before we brought you on, Carrie Geithner, El Paso County Commissioner, that I think it does, or it would, I should say, send a message by having a facility here for ICE. I know that previously Jeff Crank, unavailable here this morning, but he was on yesterday, and you can look at that entire stream of the interview if you'd like. But previously, Jeff Crank had talked about the possibility of having a small business administration office move down here because Trump wants to have government facilities in non-sanctuary cities and counties. What kind of support do you believe? Have you, first of all, gotten any input from constituents or people in the county? And if not, what do you anticipate just based on knowing the people in the county?
Oh, I think that they're going to be very supportive. I mean, I think it is very clear our community, and this is really, it's a bipartisan issue, truly, as you know, Richard. I mean, you've got these radical leftists who are, yes, attacking these facilities and are against, upholding the rule of law in our country. But for the most part, most citizens, whether they are Republican or Democrat, support the effort to deport people who are in our country illegal. So I really think that our community is very supportive of it, just like most citizens are across the United States. And I think, again, they're going to be grateful for the work that is being done, even though we are in a state who continues to, keep these laws in place. And I hope that our legislature and especially Republicans in the legislature continue to fight those sanctuary laws even into the next session.
You've got I was here this morning, and I know, the information is a little bit limited in terms of just talking about the specifics, and I didn't want to bring you on to talk about that. But overall, just whether you think the idea of having an ICE detention center here in El Paso County, whether it's the locations that are being tossed around in the Gazette and KKTV or not, whether you think that's a good idea to have an ICE detention center here, or would you be opposed to it? Bill Wysong.
Thank you, Richard, for the opportunity. I'm very much for it. I wasn't able to catch the full discussion that you had with Tim Lee, but his take has been for a number of years now: make Colorado Springs, make El Paso County, make the state of Colorado the safest community in the nation. And this is just one more step. Unfortunately, our governor has chosen to make things really difficult with the sanctuary city, sanctuary state. And so we have to resort to, measures like this. It's too bad that ICE can't work with the sheriff and utilize an existing facility, but since we can't, I'm all in favor of opening another facility in Colorado Springs and showing the rest of the country that we're behind the president and, getting our criminal, especially our criminal element of our illegal immigrants out. And then there's a whole other discussion about the rest of the illegal immigrants.
And I want to say, first of all, I appreciate you joining us here today. And I appreciate you being on Board of County Commissioners. And it's not just because I agree with you on virtually everything, although that is part of the equation, but it's because you have a very meticulous mind. You've got a background in the military, if my recollection is correct. You bring some of that to the table when you're dealing with things like this. And I know there's a slight downside, and that downside would only be that when they had an ICE detention center up there in Aurora, there were protests at that center. I wouldn't look forward to that in El Paso County. But by the same token, I have to say that was an era when Aurora's police department and some of the federal agencies weren't doing a very good job of protecting people, their facilities. John Pepicatore would be a good example of that. Are there any concerns you would have about bringing a facility here? Because I agree with you. Plus, like I said, I think it sends a great message.
That is the only concern. But however, before we open it, we can plan accordingly, knowing that you're going to have some people, and that gives you the ability to choose wisely as far as your location, to put up a proper perimeter fence, egress, ingress to protect the ICE officers. All of that, you didn't have to think about that in the past. Now we do. So it's going to add a little bit more cost and time and space. However, it's overcomable. And I think it's just one more step, unfortunately, that the ICE and the federal government are going to have to take to help protect the ICE officers.
You mentioned the sheriff here. I want to be clear to folks, and maybe you can help me with this. I have zero doubt that Sheriff Roybal is opposed to illegal imminent criminals being in El Paso County in any fashion. Same thing with Sheriff Meixel up there in Teller County. The state of Colorado, all the Democrats in the state House, state Senate, Jared Polis, et cetera, they've done everything they can to handcuff people like Sheriff Meixel and Sheriff Roybal Do you think that is going to change anytime soon? Because I'd like to believe there's going to be this big, huge red wave that comes through Colorado. I don't see that happening, unfortunately. We're going to have to, in my opinion, kind of deal with the cards that we've got right now. But your thoughts on this, Bill Wysong?
Well, first of all, I'm not speaking for the sheriff or the sheriff's department. So
correct.
That was kind of a slip there, but and I'm sure he'll be more than happy to give his opinion. But as far as the red wave, sooner would be better. However, in 2026, we have that opportunity to put in a Republican governor and hopefully flip the legislature so that the Republicans and the Trump goals and mission can be implemented, and we can really strongly implement the Make America Great Again, and especially on top of the big beautiful bill. Yeah, there's some issues. There's a lot of misinformation out there.
Tons.
But the whole idea is to actions speak louder than words, and I think yet again it will be shown that what is in the big beautiful bill is going to be a tremendous opportunity for the country to really right itself.
I want to thank you again before I let you go, because
so as we can see, very different tone and tenor between the two audiences there. And, during this county commissioner meeting, everyone, they capped it at an hour, as Geithner had said earlier. But everyone was pretty upset about the prospect of ICE, and there were a wide variety of activists and community members, including some potential and former political candidates. The first one was Jacqueline Armendariz, who is going to be running for the El Paso County Commissioner, District 5. It was recently redistricted, and it could potentially be one of the first county commissioner seats to actually elect a Democrat since the Nixon administration. But we'll see. You never know. But here she is giving her comments to county commissioners.
Hello, my name is Jacqueline Armendariz Unzueta, and I'm the first Democrat to file for the El Paso County Board of Commissioners District 5 race in 2026. I'm here today because I answered the call of our community. We're all working together to express a great concern about ICE's abuse of power and the way it's contributing to the rise of fascism in our country. Well, I'm relieved to hear the chair reaffirm that this board actually intends to uphold a state law as the job requires, unlike the Colorado gun control laws this commission has previously attacked. However, to clarify Commissioner Geithner's comments, the issue of our democracy being in jeopardy is indeed on the commission's unofficial agenda today because the people have made it so. That's how democracy works. It also concerns me the commission apparently views itself as powerless, that they can't take action on this issue, such as simply discussing it when it comes to the community. Somehow, though, when it comes to attacking nonprofits that serve immigrants or bashing Governor Polis, this commission has previously seen fit to at least issue a news release, but not when it comes to the rise of fascism. This is an all-hands-on-deck situation for our country, and local government elected officials do not get to wash their hands of these dangers. Ask yourself if you'll be on the right side of history when this chaos era comes to pass. As Commissioner Nelson noted, there are a variety of people in this county, and we must serve them all because no human being is illegal. As people with North American indigenous heritage, this land is our land. However, I think people would disagree with Commissioner Nelson's June comments to the newspaper that the county is headed in a really good direction. To be clear, a good direction would be on the side of protecting democracy and taking forthright action about the concerns of our constituents, not pretending they don't exist. So I look forward to having these conversations further when I sit by your side at the dais after November 2026. Thank you.
We also heard from former, maybe future, State Representative Stephanie Vigil, who's currently serving as the director of the Citizens Project, a nonprofit here in Colorado Springs. And she gave her kind of take on both the county commissioner's response about, not being involved in these decisions, as well as her position on the ICE protest. So let's take a look.
Good morning, commissioners. son, Steffi Hill, former and future state rep for Colorado's 16th House District. You all know why I'm up here today, and I understand that you said you're not going to have anything to do with the ICE centers. I find that really difficult to believe from this commission. You've been very vocal about how you don't want us to be a sanctuary county. You've been very vocal about how much you want our county to coordinate with ICE, and you've been very vocal for sure about land use decisions, that you demand home rule over land use. We can't sit here and pretend like this detention center isn't going to require any sort of waiver or variation from the zoning, because we know it will. We know you're going to have to sign off on things, and you're going to sit here and pretend like you don't have anything to do with it. I have a really hard time buying that. Every government over the last century that has carried out an ethnic cleansing campaign has had their justifications. Every one of them. And we watch them do it over and over again. Generally speaking, none of you, and certainly most other elected officials in this state, aren't just going to come right out and say that it's because they hate the black and brown people. But the president y'all supported sure has. He's been very vocal about this. He's talked about how they're not humans. Literal dehumanization. It doesn't get more explicit than that. He said they're not humans, they're animals. He said they're poisoning the blood of our country. And I'm sorry, y'all, but you go well out of your way to make sure that this commission stays 5 out of 5 Republicans year over year, that it never changes, that you always have single party control. So when we have a Republican president who's in lockstep with all of you and is carrying out an ethnic cleansing campaign in our community, we need you to say something. We need you to do something. Fundamentalists and extremists have a serious problem. They don't tend to allow themselves a lot of off-ramps, right? You can't just say forever that all of these immigrant people are criminals and rapists and that they're running loose in our streets and then go, oh, I'm just kidding. We didn't want to put that detention center in our community. And I get that, so I'm giving you one. I'm giving you an off-ramp. It's not too late. It is not too late for you to say the right thing. It is not too late for you to stand with humanity and say that we won't have concentration camps in El Paso County.
Following the Board of County Commissioners meeting, the activists gathered outside. They did kind of a sidewalk protest thing. Here's some clips from that.
This is what democracy looks like. Tell me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Tell me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Last time, tell me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. All right, Colorado Springs, you just told them. Told them good what democracy looks like. Head down to the sheriff's office, letting those people know that we're not going to stand for them taking our democracy away. All right, let's start moving down this way. All right, you may follow Adam right on.
How are you? And you're Marshal Tom, right?
That's right, yeah. Also known as the Butler.
That evening, activist group Indivisible Colorado Springs held another protest outside of the El Paso County Sheriff's Office called Disappeared in America, where they highlighted people who had been arrested by ICE and detained. And Dana Carm, one of the organizers, shared a bunch of their stories. So here is that.
Took her without showing a warrant despite an active asylum case. So yes, these people are trying to get asylum. They are seeking asylum and they were kidnapped by ICE.
Yay!
Yay! Does anyone have Jasmine? Let me show you. Here's Jasmine. Right, so this is, I turned it off. This is Jasmine. Sorry, I'll give you a sign. You'll be Jasmine today. All right, so Jasmine's a Canadian entrepreneur and co-founder of the Holy Water brand. So it's a water brand called Holy. So she was detained by ICE after attempting to re-enter the U.S. at the San Ysidro border to process a new work visa. Despite having legal paperwork and a return flight, she was held in harsh conditions and transferred to Arizona and remains in detention with no release timeline. This is a Canadian. All right, so we have Jeanette. It's Jeanette Vizguera. She's Jeanette. Yes, Jeanette, thank you, Naomi. All right, so we know Jeanette. Jeanette's from Denver. She was a longtime Colorado, she still is, longtime Colorado resident and immigrant rights activist. She was arrested by ICE at her workplace, the Target, despite having lived in the U.S. since 1997. She's a mother of 4, a U.S. citizen. Her attorney said ICE is obviously attempting to deport her under an invalid order, adding ICE. If ICE proceeds, it sends a chilling message to anyone about the agency's disregard for due process and the rule of law. So obviously they just target her because she's an activist. Shay. Thank you. Yeah, up in Geo and Aurora. Rebecca, does anyone have Rebecca? Yeah. So Rebecca is a 28-year-old British tourist who was detained by ICE in Tacoma after trying to leave for the U.S. for Canada. Though she had a return ticket, she was detained for 19 days before being deported. So just a tourist. We're arresting tourists. Yeah. Thank you. Back to England. Yeah. I mean, she's deported home, thankfully, but she's a tourist. We're arresting the tourists now. Nobody is safe. And nobody's safe. Exactly. So, does anyone have Suleiman Mian? Suleiman? All right, so Suleiman, again from Colorado. From Colorado. His youth soccer coach and father was detained by customs while returning home from visiting family abroad. A green card holder who's lived in the U.S. for 25 years. He was held without explanation, shocking his wife and infant son in the Aurora community. So again, from Aurora, targeting Aurora here. All right, Heidi Sanchez. Yeah, so Heidi. Heidi's a Tampa mother and home health aide. She's abruptly separated from her breastfeeding infant during a routine ICE check-in. So obviously people trying to do the right thing, trying to be legalized, and they're taking them out of the courts and arresting them. So her infant daughter was hospitalized from the trauma, and her family is now urgently seeking humanitarian people to bring her back. So it's Heidi. All right, we all know the story of Andrew. Andrew? We have a couple of Andrews. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so Andrew Hernandez Romero is a gay makeup artist and asylum seeker from Venezuela who was deported by the Trump administration to the maximum security prison in El Salvador. He was removed based solely on some tattoos and some old social media posts. So Andre was seen in distress at the CCOT prison, pleading, "I'm not a gay member, I'm gay, I'm a stylist." So as you heard, he was just, yesterday, deported to Venezuela. Yay. But 120 days, I think, in the El Salvadorian prison. Caroline Diaz-Convex. Does anyone have Caroline? Hi. Hi. All right, so Caroline is a 19-year-old nursing student at the University of Utah. She was detained by ICE minutes after a routine traffic stop in Colorado. She remains in immigration detention with a pending asylum case after living in the U.S. for 12 years since arriving from Brazil as a child with her family. You guys might have heard about this because Attorney General Weiser is going after the police officer that detained her, or told ICE about her. So thank you, AG Weiser. Bye.
Protesters also heard from Colorado Springs activist Brandon Ricon, who is involved in kind of various aspects of lefty organizing. He also addressed the crowd.
My name is Brandon Rincon. I'm with the Colorado Springs Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. We're a grassroots organization dedicated to holding police accountable, and that includes our sheriff's office.
Yes!
As we know, Sheriff Roybo is hell-bent on breaking Colorado constitutional law. Shame!
Shame!
Sheriff Roybo thinks he's above the law, but furthermore, Sheriff Roybo thinks he's above the people. But we're here to remind him that he is not.
He is not.
Our main demand is for community control of the police, and that means an all-elected, all-civilian review and oversight board that has the power to establish policy of departments, has the power to establish priority of departments, has the power to hire and fire any officer from Sheriff Roybo to the newest rookie. And if we had an established board like this today, we could make sure that Sheriff Roybo follows Colorado constitutional law. We can hold Sheriff Roybo accountable right now.
Yes, we need to.
And we would do that by investigating him. We do that by putting subpoenas on his officers. We would do that by firing him and saying that, Sheriff Roybo, if you don't want to work for the people, then you aren't going to work anymore. We demand an end to these immigration raids. We demand an end to the racist terror brought upon our immigrant community. And we stand with immigrants in unwavering solidarity. Sheriff Roybo, no more raids!
Sheriff Roybo, no more raids!
Immigrants are here to stay!
Immigrants are here to stay!
Sheriff Roybo, no more raids!
Sheriff Roybo, no more raids!
Immigrants are here to stay!
Immigrants are here to stay!
Sheriff Roybo, ain't it clear?
Sheriff Roybo, ain't it clear?
Immigrants are welcome here!
Immigrants are welcome here!
Sheriff Roybo, ain't it clear?
Sheriff Roybo, ain't it clear?
You are not welcome here!
You are not welcome here!
Immigrants are welcome here!
Immigrants are welcome here!
You are not welcome here!
You are not welcome here!
Thank you.
And afterwards, community members gathered on the sidewalk and waved flags and banners and did all of that stuff.
Immigrants are welcome here. Immigrants are here to stay. Immigrants are here to stay.
And as you can see, folks are still, quite upset in Colorado Springs. The progressives and the leftists are, concerned about the El Paso County Sheriff's involvement in ICE raids, the support that those raids have had from Colorado Springs Mayor Yemi Mobolade, who is himself an immigrant, and it's generating a lot of activity. I guess we'll see what happens with that activity moving forward. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to give us a like and subscribe and share it. Tell your friends about it. Follow us on social media. We are on Facebook and Instagram and Blue Sky and TikTok and anywhere that you do social media things. So give us a follow, give us a like, and keep in mind that the reporting for this podcast and the Colorado Times Recorder is made possible by the generous donations of viewers like you. If you appreciate our content and our reporting, please consider going to coloradotimesrecorder.com and making a tax-deductible donation to our nonprofit newsroom. Thanks so much for listening. Stay safe out there.